about the outcome of the reaction, I'll tell you that the reaction has been so positive, but for the fact that some few persons who were making money have decided to still move on with their rhetoric of tagging others. I believe that in moments like this, as Cameroonians and as peace-loving people of the Northwest and Southwest region, we owe a responsibility to tone down some of the harsh rhetoric that we used to use against each other. And so as Cameroonians, we also have to turn down some of the harsh rhetoric that we used to use against each other. Some of the rhetoric of calling people black leg, red leg, spy, and sellout, or whatever name. I think this is a moment where we have to sit, like in conflict, we call this moment the balcony effect. The balcony effect, where we go back and look at that. Okay, let us take ourselves away from the front line and look at it now from the perspective of a third party and ask ourselves this key question: if I were to be the government of Cameroon, how will I resolve this conflict? And ask yourself, if I were to be this other belligerent, how will I approach this conflict? Now, when you look at these positions, these questions, it is the balcony effect. And so when you look at the balcony effect, how you address the conflict, then now you now come in back and see how you can approach the conflict. In essence, Cameroonians and those within the government and those within the separatist group themselves need to pipe down their language. They need to now work more effectively on knowing what they say, how they say it, in terms of either drafting out the communique, the tone in it, so that they should build confidence among the people.
I don't know whether Dr. Munzu is back. Doctor, are you there? Oops. The network is terrible this evening. Internet gets restored. I will continue our discussion with you in the studio here. Now, international community, we have seen the outing of the U.S. Embassy. We've seen the outing of the Canadian representatives in Yaoundé also. We also have read the reaction of the Pope. We have also read so many persons appreciating what is happening. But surprisingly, for the first time, we see separatists congratulating the President of the Republic like Capo Daniel. Let's take a listen to what Capo Daniel had to say with respect to this announcement for the opening of talks between the government of Cameroon and separatists.
To say congratulations to President Paul Biya. I want to say congratulations to the Prime Minister of Cameroon for this bold step. It takes recklessness to declare a war, and it takes courage to pursue peace. For the faction in Cameroon that seeks peaceful resolution of this war of Amazonian liberation, be courageous, stand firm, abandon the path of war. We are all blacks. We are all Africans. There is no need for this war. For we, the Amazonian people, it has taken us courage to overcome our fears, to overcome our suspiciousness against the Cameroon regime. Rightfully so. Negotiation is the pathway for the resolution of this crisis, which we are sure that the Cameroon government walked into this negotiation without precondition. And this spirit is reflected in this joint declaration that for the first time, the Cameroon and the Amazonian states have joined together to put out a common statement. This is historic and this is huge. Congratulations to our leaders for their boldness, their courage, and the demonstration of unity. Like I said before, congratulate President Paul Biya and his Prime Minister, Diongote, for taking these courageous steps. Like we say, to declare war is recklessness, but it takes courage to make peace. And we hope that our people will have a relief from the hostilities as the confidence building measures will be rolled out and the negotiation process will kick on as soon as those information are made available.
Okay, that was Capo Daniel of this ACOF and the ADF. Did you also see him making this, going by his previous outings?
He was very
okay. Dr. Simon Munzu is there. We thank God that you are back. Doctor, can you just learn on what you were developing with the peculiarity with Canada as leading this process? Can you unmute yourself?
Phone is
okay. Yes, go on.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's good. Just go on now.
Okay, very quickly. I was going to add that as a third factor, Canada is a major and well-respected player on the international scene within the international community. So, as we said earlier, this effort is not, it may be seen to be led by Canada, but it is definitely supported by several other key players on the international scene, especially the permanent members of the UN Security Council. So all those factors taken together make Canada particularly qualified and credible to lead this process. I just want to, I conclude by adding that on the other hand, we should not think that Canada's involvement has completely excluded Switzerland. Don't be surprised to learn that Canada and Switzerland are working on this together.
Okay, let's understand the notion of no preconditions before the talks. How should parties approach this process, Doctor?
Yeah. Well, the notion of no preconditions simply means that in order to give the process a chance, the parties must come to the table without insisting that certain things be done or that they obtain certain things before they come to the table. Obviously, it's the beginning of a negotiation process, and parties obviously have their interests. They have the goals that they are seeking when they come to negotiation, but each one of them at the commencement point has to say, I am going in. It is while I'm inside that I will advance my position and my interests. Rather than saying from the beginning, I am not going to come to the negotiation table unless A, B, C, D happens. So if you do that, then you are setting preconditions for dialogue. But if you don't do that, you simply say, okay, I am coming. I'm coming to listen to you when we start talking. Obviously, I'm coming to meet you with my interest in my mind, but I'm going to keep those until I get to the table. I'm not going to insist that unless you address my grievances, I am not going to sit with you. So that's what's happened here from what I gather. The two parties appear to have agreed to commence. And let us not forget it. It's just a commencement of a dialogue. They've agreed to commence the dialogue without preconditions.
Okay, without preconditions. But on the sidelines, are you also worried by the fact that some parties, some separatist movements are still not endorsing this process, describing it as a charade? How would you describe such postures at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Kum, that's one of the worrying things about our situation, because it's not the first time that, especially among separatists, we have this permanent phenomenon of division. They claim to be fighting for one cause, but over the past 6 years or so, they have at every inch demonstrated their inability, their unwillingness to work together. You have no idea how many efforts were made in the past by organizations such as the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, the CDN, which I heard Mr. Mbakuru effusively thanking in a video yesterday, how much of their effort was devoted just to create unity amongst the separatists. But that seems not ever to happen. Now, in this particular instance, it is disappointing that instead of all the separatist movements joining this process, we find that those who embraced the Swiss process from the beginning, namely Chris Anu and Isako Ikomi and a few others, have refused, virtually boycotted the Canadian process. And those who from the beginning rejected the Swiss process, namely Akwanga and Chouayaba and Mbakuru and others, they are now firmly within the Canadian process. So from that point of view, it is disappointing. We can only wish and hope that as the process continues, those who are out of it right now will find a reason to join. And reading the statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Canada, we see that in the final paragraph of that statement, a window has been left open for them because the wish is expressed in that paragraph of the statement that other groups, obviously they had in mind, the Sako group, the Chris Anu group, the Marianta group, and so on, that they would join. At the end of the day, it will be best if everybody is in, but the train has left the station. And at this point, those who don't want to come on board will find that ultimately they will have no choice but to come on board at a later stage when others would have progressed in stating their positions. So one's recommendation, advice, appeal to those groups will be that they join now so that everybody is sitting on the train at the time that it takes off at the station.
Did you listen to the justifications given by Marianta and Sako for not believing in the Canada-led process that is going to commence? We don't know when precisely. Can we understand the rationale behind their posture at this time?
Well, I am not within the inner circles, so I can only speculate based on observations like many of us are observing things that's going on. As I say, the first observation is that characteristically, the leadership of the separatist movements is fractured. They seem never to want to work together. I mean, we've seen that right across the board. And so it is not surprising that this time around, that attitude continues to manifest itself. Otherwise, I mean, I listened to an audio, or was it a video that Sako Ikomi issued in reaction to the statement from the Canadian Foreign Ministry. And to his complaint, and I don't know whether it is his only complaint or the major complaint, but his complaint was that they were not consulted in the choice of mediator. In other words, they don't recognize Canada as being facilitator or mediator or whatever, because according to him, they did not participate in choosing the mediator. He claims that the mediator should come from a negotiation under which all the stakeholders agree that this person or this entity should be the mediator. Now, is that a valid reason for staying out? I don't know, but that's, as far as I can tell, is the one reason that they offered.
Okay. You listen to Sako, Marianta. I don't know, I've not read from Chris Anu so far, but how do we get them coming out that, okay, we are not endorsing this? Are they coming from a position of strength? Because those are some of the considerations to take when these opportunities come our way.
They are not coming from the position of strength, because as Dr. Riley put it there, the train has left the station. And it is still taking off, and so they still have enough time to get on board, or they'll be left out. Because if you look at these persons who have not endorsed it, we are going by looking at the number of groups here. How many groups have actually endorsed the Swiss Let's Talk? We have close to about 5 or 6 groups, plus the affiliated groups. How many key groups have not endorsed this? We have Marietta, we have Chris Anu, we have Ekume Sako. We have three groups. Now, if you look at this proportionately, you ask yourself that, okay, if Marietta and Ekume are saying that they did not participate in selecting the negotiators, the lead negotiators, and so therefore they are not taking part in the process, or they are not endorsing the peace let's talk, I want to believe, and I want to say this, that they are not being realistic, because they are taking the position which conflict resolutors will say they are going at the level of competing. Now, you cannot compete in a situation where you are looking for peace, because in this process you are looking at assertiveness. When you go assertiveness, you have to be more concerned about the outcome. What if you don't make a deal at the end of the day? What your long-term relationship with this person? Because if you start from the ongoing by being assertive, by stating clearly that since you did not participate in selecting the lead negotiators, so therefore you will not endorse this process, you are making it difficult for the government in future to call a negotiation and involve you in, because you are more concerned with the outcome than the long-term relationship between both parties. And in conflict, you must be concerned with the long-term relationship and also concerned with the outcome. That's why you have to watch the strategy that we talked about in conflict resolution, which is the accommodative principles. The accommodative principles, rather than going to the principle of competing, because in the accommodative principles, you are concerned first with the long-term relationship with the person. Why should you be more concerned with the long-term relationship? Because you may go to the negotiation table and you don't have a deal. But if you are concerned with the long-term relationship, you don't have a deal, there is a possibility that you always have to come back again on the table. The window will be open. But if you are going on a competitive manner, it gives the other person the advantage to see that you are more concerned with the outcome than the long-term relationship. So therefore, if you finally, if by chance, get to the table and no deal, you will not definitely have an opportunity again. But within the accommodative principle of negotiation, in such a way that you are concerned with the outcome as well as the long-term relationship. Sako and the other two, Chris Anu and Marietta, what I want to say is that if I am in a position as a negotiator to advise them, what I would do is that I would tell them that in this process, it's just a process, just the start of this process. Endorse it, because nobody has actually laid down their interest or their position. As Dr. Riley made it clear that the aspect of where they said there should be no precondition, it means that at this level, everybody is open. There's no taboo issue. You are open to come to the table, sit and listen first. Therefore, you go back now and look at what you need to do as strategy. First, when you come to that talk, you have to listen. Then you go back with your team. You have a strategic meeting. You set up you look at key players. You also look at the way forward. You look at the compromise, where you can be compromised, the nature in which you want to approach it. Is it a win-win, a win-lose, or you want to look at it from a different perspective? You want to have a partner. What is your best alternative to this negotiated agreement, what we call partner? So you must first of all attend this meeting first. endorse it, attend it, before you go back and now come out to the real talks where you have your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, which is known as a partner. But without you endorsing this at the beginning, you put yourself in a very tight and difficult position, because these persons have not actually had a round table to discuss. Remember, I said that negotiation is not an event, it's a process, and it can take 1 week, it can take 2 weeks, it can take 1 month, it can take 3 weeks, it can take 4 months, it can take a year for these persons to actually reach an agreement, for these persons to reach a compromise. And I said some while ago on your platform that the agreement that may be reached at on the ground, it may not be welcomed by some few individuals, but at least it will help to pacify, reduce the tension. At this level, what Sako Ekome and Chris Anu and Marinata Ricks seeing is that if these persons who have agreed on the Canadian talks successfully go through the process and agree with the government of Cameroon, the people on the ground will not be the #1 factor to chase their group out. Because remember, for you to win a war as a military, there's what called civil and military cooperation. Now, if these persons have agreed and the government work with them, now the civilians will become more cooperative with the military. So it is at their own end that they are putting themselves at the tight corner. Why we are still at the beginning, they should get on to the train.
Okay, they should get...
Yes, Mr. Kum.
Yes, Doctor.
Can I come? Yes, please let me just follow up very quickly from what my co-panelist, I regret, I asked for his name, but I didn't
get it. It is Talmai Jarvis. Jarvis.
Okay, Jarvis. Greetings to you again.
Thank you, Doctor.
You know, let me just, to what Jarvis just said, let me add this with respect to the attitude of those who are staying out. Mr. Kum, you are witness to the fact that right from the first quarter of 2017, some of us were advocating the convening of a national conference on this problem, on the Anglophone problem, to be preceded by a general meeting of Anglophones among themselves. At that time, we were called all sorts of names by those who were opposed to any sense of negotiation or dialogue with those whom they called La République. Okay? Now, and yet, if they had listened and we engaged the process, it is likely that by now, this crisis would have ended. It is likely that several, at least 3 or 4 years ago, peace would have returned to these two regions and life would have returned to normal for our people. They stood against it and they killed it, that initiative. Now, what do you think makes them accept in 2022 to join a negotiation process? It is, on the one hand, awareness on the part of the government that this war is costing them a lot. It is both financially and politically. The war is costing the government a great deal. Then, on the part of the separatists, let's call a spade, and I've repeatedly told them this. They know that they don't have what it takes to defeat the Cameroon army so thoroughly that they drag them to a negotiating table and impose terms. They know that. And they have finally come, as it were, to accept that, something we've been telling them for a long time. Now, when it comes to the armed groups, without pretending to know their exact capacities, military capacities, Mr. Kum, you and I, just from a layman's assessment, we know amongst those 5 or 6 groups, who of them counts militarily on the ground, which of those 6 is more noticeable than others. And my assessment is that it is the more noticeable ones that have joined the Canadian process, which has international backing and everything to go with it. which reluctantly, as they may initially have come in, has the buy-in, the commitment of the government of Cameroon. So all the key players are behind Canada. Then you, Chris Anu, Ewane, Marietta, who even amongst yourselves as armed groups are not the most significant, you say no. What do you say no in this context? When you say no in this context, at what point? If you say no in this context, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, go on. We are listening.
So if you say no at this stage and in this context, Mr. Sako Ewane, Mr. Chris Anu, Madam Marietta, if you stay out at this stage, what do you think, what forces do you have that will make you impose to everybody else the point at which you join? It's a tactical mistake, a tactical blunder on their part. For Ayabacho, Akwanga, who else is there in terms of those who have, so, quote unquote, boots on the ground? When those two who have boots on the ground have joined, what boots do you, Chris Anu, have on the ground? What boots do you?
Okay, Doctor, let me cue you. Doctor, let me just cue you in. While we are discussing, I've just been sent a message, an audio message from someone watching the program, and I've listened to it that states Chris Anu just announced that he is going to be part of the talk. So I'm sure it is Marietta now and Sako who are still have not voiced their reaction. Remember, I said that I have not heard from Chris Anu. Marietta actually expressed her dissatisfaction or disappointment at what came out from Canada. But I just listened to Chris Anu, who says that they are ready to engage in whatever talks has been announced by Canada.
That positive development along the lines that I was developing, because indeed, it will be a great tactical mistake on their part to stay out at this point. Remember, and this your viewers need to be aware of, because let's not run away run ahead of ourselves. Remember that we are still at the starting block. This is just this is an agreement to begin talks. They've not even begun the talks yet. So when people start boycotting at this stage, they are shooting themselves in the foot. You have not even gone into the negotiation yet. You've not raised issues, some of which are going to be difficult to surmount. You've said you have appointed technical committees to study confidence-building measures. Those technical committees, as far as we know, have not even started work yet. The confidence-building measures have not even been decided yet, and so on and so forth. So there hasn't even been a substantive point of discussion yet on which you say we disagree. How can you refuse to start to talk? It's a terrible mistake. So I'm glad to hear that Chris Anu has opted in, and I don't really see realistically what Sako Ewane is counting on to remain out, what Marietta is counting on to remain out. If they choose to remain out, they are likely to be the losers, and the advisor, I would tell them, come on board. You can make your point while you are inside. If you remain outside, no one will listen to you, and the train will move on.
Now, Doctor, let me put this to you, quoting from the statement by the Foreign Affairs Minister of Canada. It says, Canada welcomes the agreement by the parties to enter a process to reach a comprehensive, peaceful, and political solution to the conflict. The parties have also agreed to form technical committees to begin work on confidence-building measures. You are a high-profile diplomat. What do we understand by this statement?
Well, Mr. Kum, we are, as I said, we are just at the starting block. Anyone who wants who thinks that we are already seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it's living in Kokuland. Is just deceiving himself or herself. There is a very rough patch ahead. There is no doubt about that. However, before the field, considering the hostility that has characterized the relationship between the government and the separatists, the armed groups, these past 6 years or so, before they even get into the same room to sit down, yeah, there needs to be someone needs to raise their comfort level, you know, where they can relax and say, okay, we were belligerents before, now we are going to talk peace. So, as I said, confidence building measures have to do with what are the little or big things that need to be done at this stage to make the parties have some trust in each other. That will dispose them to listen, or dispose them positively to listen to each other, considering where they're coming from in terms of belligerence. For example, and I'm not anticipating anything, I hear that they have technical committees to work out confidence building measures, but again, as an observer of the situation, for example, are the parties going to say that the leaders who are, or not just the leaders, but everyone who is currently in prison in Yaoundé, Douala, Bafoussam, Boya, Konsamba, and elsewhere, on account of this problem, should be released? Are the parties going to say that amnesty should be declared for those who may have done certain things in order, for example, for them to attend meetings without fear that they may be arrested and tried? So those are just two examples, but there are confidence building measures of that kind that the parties need to work on in order to optimize, increase the chances of each one listening to the other positively and entering into the process of negotiation with a sense of trust vis-a-vis each other.
Okay. Yes, you were itching to come in there. We were talking about this issue of Chris Anu saying that okay, they are now ready to come in.
Yes, I just want to add my voice to that of Doctor to say that in this is a beginning of a process, and that at this level it is imperative for everybody to come on board, and it is a long way ahead. Because during the period of conflict resolution or negotiation, before the parties actually have a workable terms of reference, because at this point in time they have not had the terms of reference, they are now talking about, okay, yeah, we have accepted that there is need for us to sit and accept our differences and talk to each other. So Marinata and the other two, and Sako, who have not joined this train, as a negotiator, I want to plead and beg them that it is of their interest for them to join the train, because you, as Dr. Riley puts it, Doctor is a seasoned diplomat. He understands these things very well, and he rightly made it clear, and which is true, that if these persons who are on board now move with the train and successfully have an agreement, though it would kind of be difficult during the negotiating process, but they have an agreement, how much force will the two of you, your group, have in terms of getting back to negotiation? And the people who have refused are committing one of the greatest problem which we see in conflict, looking at it from the aspect of competing. That no, we are competing because the government of Cameroon is an entity on its own, we are an entity on our own, we have the same force, except you have the same force before you go on a negotiation table to say, okay, we want the competing approach. But since you don't have that force, that military force, that financial force, that diplomatic force, that collaborative force from your other parties to get this person on the table. We advise you as negotiators to adopt the approach which is more on collaboration or accommodative strategy. When you go on accommodative strategy, you give room and you open the door for more things to be discussed. Mr. Kum, I want to assure you that we are on the right track, because the first issue was for the problem to be identified and acceptance. The government has accepted that there is a problem. And also, the next aspect is identify key stakeholders, which has been done, because in the process of before this announcement, there was a process of identifying the key stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders? Who are those involved in this? They have identified the number of persons. You contact this number of persons that have been contacted. The next issue is now, when you contact them, you lay a strategic framework, which that strategic framework is for this person you have contacted, for them to agree that there is need for us to talk formally. Now they have agreed. And since they have agreed, the next phase will now be to sit down now and have a workable terms of reference. What is it that how the coordination process, how is it going to be? When are the days of meeting? Should we establish a hotline that is open for everybody? When are the days that we are going to meet, the location of the meeting? This is the next phase. And when you agree now on venue and you agree on timing, now the next phase which is going to be will not be the phase of listening, where parties will have to lay their case uninterrupted, because during this process it should be a reminder to those even at the level of the government bench to understand that when you are going at this the next phase, you are the first thing is listening. You are not listening to argue, you listen to all parties. So you set a day, a period, A present, B present, D present, all everybody present uninterrupted. You go home, because I want them and the peace-loving people of Cameroon to understand that this negotiation process is not going to be as smooth as they think it should be. But there's going to be an agreement. The first day, the party should understand that there will be tension, they will argue, some will even attempt to walk out, but it is just normal. It's negotiation process. It's just normal. They should, when that moment comes, they should not treat it like it's something very bad. Parties may threaten to walk out, but when you listen to the parties all present their case, the next aspect now is you come and mirror them. When you mirror them, mirroring is a process where you ask each of the parties after they may have presented that, okay, you said this, that. Was that what you said? They say, yes, we said this, that. This is building confidence. After you must have mirrored everybody, you now go back on the same table and ask, the next period you ask them now, okay, if you were the government of Cameroon, I want you to give down strategies in which you think we can resolve this conflict without looking at this aspect A, or let us give us strategies. When everybody must have given their strategy, then you now look at where all of them agree, points that all of these factions agree more. You shift them aside, and before now you move to the side where they disagree. Before now you can now look at where they disagree. When you move to the side where they agree more, you start meeting those concessions. Therefore you are building confidence. But I want us to understand here that during the sit-in process in itself, there will be disagreement, there will be tension, there will be query. But what is so sweet and nice about the process of negotiation is that during the early phase, temper will be so high, but in the middle, as time goes on, if both parties still give in, you see that tension will go down low and they will have an agreement.
Let me take this contribution from Professor Victor Julius Ngo, who was former registrar and deputy vice chancellor of the University of Boya and currently president of the Catholic University of the Diocese of Boya. He says, and my view is that it is not the number of armed groups which participated, but rather the degree of influence which they have on the fighters on the ground. Cameroonians, especially Anglophones, are tired with this senseless war, and the government should take this responsibility and dialogue in good faith while preserving the unity and territorial integrity of the country. The armed groups, on the other hand, should realize that the international community surely finds it hard to support the sufferings which the armed separatists have forced on Anglophones. Peace dialogue negotiation has not started yet. They are to put in place confidence-building measures to set the stage for substantive dialogue negotiation to take off. We hope all the parties and groups will have the supreme interest of the population. Thank you, Professor Victor Julius Ngo. Dr. Munzu, you just followed what Prof. Ngo says, that the supreme interest of the population should come primary on whatever has to be done. What is that core supreme interest of the people? By your reading, you are certainly discussing with the guys on ground, though you are not in Cameroon for now. What is their interest that needs to be protected by those that are expected to engage in this process?
Yeah, Mr. Kum, remember that this crisis did not begin as an armed conflict. Okay? Back in October, November, December 2016, and for much of the first half of 2017, even going into the second half, this conflict was not an armed conflict. And yet it was there. Why was it there? It was there because Anglophones in Cameroon have and have had for the past 60 years genuine grievances concerning the way in which they are treated in the country that they formed together with those whom they thought were their Francophone brothers and sisters to form a new country called the Federal Republic of Cameroon. And in the past 60 years, the system has been run and managed in a way that constituted the discrimination, the domination, the marginalization, the assimilation, the subjugation that we are talking about. That has always been there, and that is the crux of the matter. So, when the conflict became military, became an armed conflict, starting from about November of 2017, things degenerated, and the two parties began to inflict pain, suffering on our population up to this day. So let's not forget, therefore, that in this matter, there is the military, or if you like, the armed conflict aspect, but there is also the political aspect. The political aspect requires that the root cause of the problem, namely the marginalization, domination, subjugation, assimilation of Anglophones, be addressed. And in that, it is not only the government of Cameroon and separatist groups that have an interest. It is all of Cameroon, and specifically, and more particularly, the Anglophone populations of Cameroon that have an interest in that aspect of the matter. And at some point, they are going to have to be involved. This first stage concerns only those who have been carrying guns. The government, on the one side, through its military and defense, the security and defense forces that have been on the theater of war in the north and southwest. The separatists on the other side, who have had their boys in the bushes in the northwest and southwest. So we concede that this first phase concerns only them, but don't think that this process is going to be limited to them. There's going to come a point where these other bigger issues have got to be tackled, and other parts of the population will be involved. In that respect, Mr. Kum, let me draw your attention to this. The announcement from the Minister of Foreign Affairs that I have in front of me here says that today, that is January 20th, 3 days ago, 2023, the Minister of Foreign Affairs issued the following statement on the announcement of, listen to this, announcement of a peace process aimed at resolving, take note, aimed at resolving the ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Okay? The ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon is not only a military crisis. It's not only an armed conflict crisis. It is this governance crisis along the lines of domination, etc., that I was talking about. Number one. Number two, to show you that the Canadians and others are not just looking at these two armed belligerents. Here is what that statement said. The very first substantive paragraph says, civilians are bearing the brunt of the ongoing crisis in Cameroon, with more than 6,000 people having lost their lives since 2017. In addition, nearly 800,000 people have been displaced as a result of this crisis, and 600,000 children do not have full access to education. So, Mr. Kum, what that tells you is that the humanitarian consequences of this conflict are also a driving factor, a driving force behind those who are taking to help us solve this problem. Okay? And there too, it is not only the government of Cameroon and separatist, armed separatist groups that will take an interest or be involved in finding a lasting solution. And finally, this too is important. It says that Canada welcomes the agreement by the parties to, listen to this, to enter a process to reach a comprehensive, peaceful, and political resolution of the conflict. You know, do you think that in reaching a comprehensive, peaceful, and political resolution of the conflict, it is only the government of Cameroon and the armed groups that have an interest in that happening? No, it is all Cameroonians, and more specifically, all Anglophone Cameroonians in the north and southwest. So we are at the starting point. There is a long road ahead. We can only jubilate that at last the parties have recognized the necessity to engage dialogue and negotiation. In other words, they have at last acknowledged that, as some of us have been saying since the beginning, the solution to this problem cannot be military. Now that they've agreed with that, let them do the right thing, act in good faith, commit in all sincerity to arriving at peace based on justice for the people of the northwest and southwest regions, otherwise known as the southern Cameroons. And by the way, I see there was some squabbling at the beginning, hours after the statement of the Minister of Canada was released. There was some squabbling as to what this territory should be called. Instead of North and Southwest regions, it should be the former British administered trusteeship territory of the United Nations and all of that. Once again, we should not miss the substance and go on running after the shadow in terms of what the territory is called, what name is given, and all of that. We know what territory we're talking about.
Dr. Munzu, this statement by Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs that has been greeted by the United States of America, also greeted by the Pope himself, alongside other international instances. We are just getting information that the government of Cameroon is distancing itself from this process, and however, is grateful to friendly countries who have shown interest at solving this problem in Cameroon, but can assure the international community that the people of Cameroon have the mandate to find a lasting solution to the problem plaguing Cameroon, and still trust in the outcome of the major national dialogue and its recommendations. How do you react to this?
Sorry, go ahead. Mr. Kum, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yes, I'm saying that we are getting information that the government of Cameroon is distancing itself from the information, circulating information that they are engaged or they have given charge to the Canadian government to find a solution to the problem ongoing in Cameroon, that they are thanking any friendly nation that is showing interest to solving the problems that are ongoing in Cameroon, specifically the Anglophone crisis, but that they are confident in the major national dialogue that took place in Yaoundé, and believe strongly in the outcome of that major national dialogue through its recommendations, and believe that the people of Cameroon are going to find a lasting solution to what is happening out here. Is this because of the informations that have been circulating, or this is the true posture of the Cameroon government?
Well, I mean, I'm learning that from you for the first time, Mr. Kum, but in fact,
Yeah.
The next thing that the next observation I was going to make when we're talking about the parties to this was indeed that, surprisingly, since the issuing of the statement by the Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs, unless I missed something, I hadn't heard or seen or read anything reflecting the reaction of the government of Cameroon to this announcement. And now, which was surprising because it's been at least 72 hours since that announcement went out. And now you are telling us that the government of Cameroon appears not to want to come on board. That's astonishing. That's truly, truly astonishing, because one wouldn't expect the government of Canada, through its Minister of Foreign Affairs, to go public, issue a statement like this, specifically name the parties, including what they describe as Republic of Cameroon, although perhaps if people are squabbling about other words, perhaps the government of the Republic of Cameroon would have been more appropriate. But setting that aside, it would be astonishing that the government, the serious-minded government of Canada, through its Minister of Foreign Affairs, would issue such a statement to the entire world, saying that the government of Cameroon has committed, when in fact the government of Cameroon has not committed. That, Mr. Kum, would be astonishing. However, while we wait to know what is behind this, if anything, let us as citizens observe that there are signs of dysfunctionality within the government in Yaoundé. Is it possible that some aspects or some part of that government has been working on this initiative with the Canadians, and other parts are not? Is it possible that the part that was not working is responsible for the statement you're talking about? Or is there a unanimous situation of view and posture on this issue by the government of Cameroon? This, Mr. Kum, as a citizen and observer, are questions that we would like to hear the answers to in the hours and days ahead. Otherwise, it doesn't look good at this point, 72 hours after this statement came out, for the government of Cameroon to, as you report, and that is to be verified, issue a statement that essentially means that they haven't changed their position from where they were prior to the announcement. And listening at least to, or reading the communiques and statements from the separatist groups in this past 72 hours, they inform us, who are on the outside, that they have been in behind the scene discussions with the other party, being the government of Cameroon, over the past 4 months. 4 months. And they add that this has been with the United Nations as observers. Now, is that false? Are they lying to us? And if they are lying to us, then we expect the government to issue a statement saying that what the information that is put out, number one, by the separatist groups, and number two, by the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is false. And in that case, we, the citizens of Cameroon, will know that our troubles are still very much in front of us, but we should not be put in a position where you see how much euphoria, how much joy, how much jubilation this thing has created. Just the announcement that talks will begin without even knowing what the talks will be about, where they will go, where they will end. But people are so tired. People are so tired of this that just announcing that talks will hold, you see how much jubilation that caused. Now, are we to be told all of a sudden that the door is closed again because of the attitude of the government of Yaoundé on the one hand and certain parts of the separatist groups on the other?
Can we also conclude that maybe this change of our stance could have been occasioned or provoked by some of the actions surrounding this announcement by the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister? Remember that when the information was put out there, Ayabacho actually came and asked for the wordings of the announcement to be changed. We also know that John Baakuru came out also to say that what has been put out there is not what is reflected by them. And when you listen to the outing this evening of, I don't know whether it's this evening or morning, of Chris Anu, he is insisting that we are not going there to be dictated on what we have to listen to. We are not going there as part of Northwest and Southwest region. We are going there as a state of Ambazonia that exists. These not some of the things that may have pushed the government of Cameroon to change its mind, to say we are distancing ourselves from whatever talks have been announced. Because immediately the government was supposed to have...
This is not strange in conflict, where you have an announcement made and one party say, no, we are not dialoguing. It's not strange, it's but normal, it's a process. I just pity the peace-loving people of Northwest and Southwest who had hopes and who were celebrating, and some asking the question that it means that Ghost Town is no longer going to be, since dialogue is ongoing, and so people should be given the pride of place. I remember that in the course of this program, I made mention of the fact that during the early phase when we started the program, that it is a moment of reflection, a moment where we need to now to look at what we say, how we say it, pipe down some of our rhetoric, looking at the things that we are not supposed to say during this process because we are at the level of peace, confidence building. And so when this announcement was made, we had a lot of statements from the different groups, and some of them their rate was quite very much higher, and some of them their rate was quite very much abusive. And so it's been normal that we'll have things like this. But I believe, and I will say this, from the beginning of this conflict in 2017, I said the separatist leaders in the United States of America need to be taught how to carry themselves in terms of having public discourse, in terms of doing their speeches. Because when you are fighting a conflict, you should be assertive. You should look at long-term relationship, because you should not look at the outcome. Because if you see, their focus was based on the outcome of the negotiation, not the long-term relationship. The long-term relationship simply focuses on, what if in future I will need this person? What if in future I will need to work a bilateral agreement with this person? Should I spoil the process because I want just the outcome? No. I said this from 2017, that the separatist leaders need to get the services of negotiators to advise them when it comes to making some major pronouncements, such that you don't hinder the green light of peace and agreement. And when I said something like that, they insulted me and said, I'm just saying I know nothing, and we are here. We are here. Because if this announcement was made by the Canadian Commissioner or Minister of Foreign Affairs, excuse me, rather, like Dr. Munzu said,
Ayabacho says, retract
yes,
that,
retract.
And then you have to change
this
and then the government sees them changing it.
There's a problem. You got what Dr. Munzu said. This announcement could not have been made by the Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs without contextual confirmation from the government of Cameroon. Today, we saw the U.S. Embassy in Yaoundé issuing out a statement supporting this Canadian-led dialogue. But regretfully, I think when the government actions came up like this, is something that I was expecting, because of the rhetoric used by the armed conflict. No government. There are three reasons why a government will not want to negotiate in conflict. It's clear. First, they don't want to appear weak, that they are appearing weak. The third, there is always a phrase, we don't negotiate with terrorists. The third reason is their partners. What will our international partners do? Should we go on the negotiating table, and we have an agreement? Will that affect some of the agreements we have signed, the trade deals, the business deals we have signed with our international partners? These are the three reasons. But there's one central reason why the government will negotiate, and that deals with the respect of human life. The right of someone, the right to live, the right, that the sacredness of life. That's why every government will say, okay, in as much as these three factors, I will not want to appear weak, I will not want to give light to other people to feel like they can pick up arms and we negotiate, and my international partners, but the situation is that my people are dying. So there is need for me to see where I can look at the cooperation. I should focus on cooperation and collaborative rather. So if you look at the government announcing this, it's normal. Like what happened what is ongoing now when President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is leading the negotiation process between the M23 and the Democratic Republic of Congo, we've had moments where the M23 pulled out of the negotiation table. They pulled out. And the government of DRC said they are pulling out. So President Paul Kagame was frustrated last week, and he made a statement that Rwanda will not be a center for refugees coming in from Democratic Republic of Congo anymore, because they have been suffering to accommodate these people under by virtue of poor decision being taken by Democratic Republic of Congo that has forced these persons and forced the conflict to persist. And you have seen the DRC accuse Rwanda of supporting M23 rebels. So you have this kind of conflict where people are pulled out, people should not pull out. But as a negotiator, and I know this is just normal, but what I should beg both government and the separatist group is that, like Prime Minister Abe said in 2018 when he won the Nobel Peace Prize, that we must put our marks of arrogance, pride, that until we put down the marks of arrogance and pride, we will never know true justice and true peace and reconciliation. And he said, and I quote, that when you deny the youth social justice, social economic justice, you are giving them reason to deny peace. And he concluded by saying that when our love, our appreciation for human vanity outgrows our appreciation for life, then humanity will not know peace. And by this, therefore, when we appreciate human vanity by virtue of the fact that we're making good money in the course of the conflict, by virtue of the fact that we don't want to sin as negotiation with the terrorists or whatever, I ask a simple question. What has the common man in Gokitunja, Ekona Mamu Kikaikilaiki, who sings the anthem, O Cameroon, cradle of our fathers, the holy shall reign in a miserable repose, who is suffering?
Okay. Dr. Simon
Mr.
Munzu, yes, but I really want us to get to this situation where the Pope endorses something, actually salutes it. The United States also does same, and it has taken more than 48 hours for the government to come out, which means that something might have gone wrong. What would explain this decision at this time?
Well, but that's what I was saying. I mean, Canada is a credible country, and therefore, and Canada has a cautious. I mean, conducts its diplomacy and international relations with a sense of caution. So, for Canada to have come out issuing this statement last Friday, for anyone to suggest that they did that without being sure that the Cameroonian parties have actually committed would be surprising. And therefore, it is not surprising that the likes of the Holy See, so if you like the Pope, the likes of the United States and others are bound to follow in the international community, that they join in jubilating at this development, just as us Cameroonians have been jubilating, because we don't believe that a serious-minded country like Canada would issue such a statement without a firm basis. Now, is it that the parties are beginning to sidestep or drag their feet? That is to be expected. As we said, and Jarvis said the same thing. This is going to be a long process. The attitude of the parties will vary. At one moment, they will threaten to leave the talks. At other moments, they will be cooperative with the mediator. Obviously, the mediator or facilitator has a big task ahead of him or her, ultimately. So let's not deceive ourselves. The road is still very long. But for the time being, we take everything at face value, and at face value we see that a statement was issued by a credible country like Canada. Obviously, it attracts the attention of the rest of the world. Having said that, Mr. Kum, talk about you mentioned Cho Ayaba and Mbakuru and others reacting to the fact that the Canadian statement started by saying that this initiative was to end. Let me look for the peace process aimed at resolving the ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. That is what the separatist groups took offense at. Okay, but now, Mr. Kum, just pause for a moment and see their reaction to the use of the word of the nomenclature, northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, which is consecrated in our nomenclature for several years now. Compare that, Mr. Kum. Compare that with the following statement in the same statement, in the following statement, yes, in the same statement, where it says that the parties to this agreement are, the following. Number one, the Republic of Cameroon. So it's not even the government of Cameroon. It says the Republic of Cameroon. Do you know the implication of that in a context where, in the context of this conflict, where separatists refer to the Republic of Cameroon as the other side, excluding the northern and southwest regions? Now, should the government of Cameroon take issue with this designation in this statement? Because implicitly, it seems to be endorsing the idea that this negotiation is going to be between La République du Cameroun, as separatists term it, meaning Francophone side of Cameroon, and the Anglophone side of Cameroon. Do you expect the government not to react to that? Especially when in the same paragraph, the government, the statement says the parties are the Ambazonia Governing Council, Ambazonia Defense Force, the Southern Cameroon's Defense Force, Interim Government, and so on. Now, from the perspective of the government of Cameroon, do you expect that when they hear like that, that since they don't recognize Ambazonia as a country or a territory, they don't recognize anything called inter-government over and concerning any part of Cameroon. They don't recognize defense, so-called Ambazonia defense forces. So this part of that statement puts Ambazonia, so-called, on the same pedestal as Republic of Cameroon.
That is where the problem is.
And it will not be surprising if some hawks sitting behind to analyze this statement, after it was issued, start pressurizing the doves among the government that this is not right. Just as, don't forget, just as Ayaba's statement on his Twitter account complaining about this use of North and Southwest came after a lot of hot debate and wrangling and discussion of that subject among separatist circles. Okay, so they put pressure in that debate, in that discussion, on Ayaba to issue that statement. Similarly, it may well be, and I'm just an analyst, a commentator, it may well be that looking at this kind of wording in the same statement as analyzed by the hawks in government circles, they too would say, how can this statement put us on the same pedestal as this fictitious country called Ambazonia? You know, so there is a lot that will need to happen before things settle down and start moving in the direction that we, the citizens, the suffering masses, are hoping. But let's have no illusion that is going to be, as some people are in the habit of saying, a walk in the park.
The release, it says, following recent information disseminated by certain media, the government of the Republic of Cameroon informs national and international community that it has not entrusted any foreign country or external entity with any role of mediator or facilitator to settle the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. It recalls that it is first and foremost up to the Cameroonian people, to the institutions and leaders that they have freely chosen to seek appropriate ways and means to address problems facing our country. The major national dialogue, which was held in Yaoundé in 2019, was an opportunity for sons and daughters of Cameroon to exchange freely and discuss prospects for the future of peace, security, and progress for our country. Since then, the government of the Republic has been working to implement the recommendations of this major dialogue. It is also continuing its efforts to the reconstruction of areas affected by the crisis and providing assistance to the populations concerned. The government of the Republic thanks friendly countries and international institutions for the interest they take in our country and for the multifaceted support they provide. The government firmly condemns the deadly attacks and the destruction that certain terrorist groups continue to perpetrate in the northwest and southwest regions. It commends the defense and security forces for their bravery and professionalism with which they accomplish their missions of defending the territorial integrity and protecting the civilian population. The government urges friendly countries to track down and bring to justice those who from abroad are financing and encouraging violence in our country, and thanks the government of the United States of America for the actions that have made it possible to bring the perpetrators of such acts to justice, and encourages other friendly countries of Cameroon to do same. The government of the Republic once again urges members of the armed groups to seize the peace offer of the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Paul Biya, and once again contribute to the great work of nation building. Signed, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, Minister of Communication. Can we see there the insistence of the northwest and southwest regions, and going to the original announcement of the foreign minister of Canada stating the northwest and southwest region, and then the change in Ambazonia, this, and then understanding this posture today?
Remember that, as Dr. Munzu put it, we are still within the state of Cameroon. And the state of Cameroon is bound by its laws, and also you cannot put the government of Cameroon with the same pedestal with the other side. And like I said before, that the government has 3 reasons why they will say they will not negotiate. But first, before I move on with my line of argument based on that communique, I want the peace-loving people of Cameroon to understand that this is normal, where an announcement is done and a party dissociates itself publicly that we are not part. And this can be based on 3 reasons now. First, maybe at the time the issue of the venue is not agreed. Second, also in terms of name appellation, because naming is very important. Appellations of name, like Ayabacho and the rest don't want Northwest and Southwest region. Government don't want you calling them the Republic du Cameroon and calling these other people Ambazonian. Or like you read, Dr. Munzu actually articulated, the parties are, go towards the ending. The parties are. When I read that, I was kind of like, if the government agreed to this communique, saw this communique and agreed to it, therefore something is wrong. Because you are saying that the parties are the government of Cameroon, which means that you are going back to the rhetoric of separation, which the government doesn't want to hear separation. Be it as it may, I ask a simple question: what is in the name? That is what I want to ask now. What is in the name? Both sides, what is in the name? What is in the name that people, we have 6,000 plus who have been killed? What is in the name that we have over 800,000 displaced both internally and externally? What is in the name where we have 60,000 children not having access, full access to education? What is in the name when, as we speak right now, the region, some areas are having it difficult for people to live and have the harmony? What is in the name? Come back to the context of where we are today. Where we are today is as a result of the fact that we have decided not to keep away our marks of pride and arrogance, and those who are at the forefront of surrogating that the war should continue, or surrogating that the process of negotiation should not yield fruit, are people who have never felt the agony or seen how a poor person, or seen how the mothers are dying on the ground of the fright of an elderly person who hear the sound of a gun and trembles. They have never seen it. They have never experienced it. So what is in the name? And when we come to this aspect of conflict in itself, parties, I want to state it clear that parties will pull out in the course of negotiation. What is happening, Mr. Kum, in Cameroon is a situation where William Ury explained it in one of his books, Getting to Yes to Yourself, that you have 2 persons fighting over an orange, and they did not ask the question why. When the father asked, what is it that you need the orange? These 2 kids were fighting over an orange, and they asked, what do you need the orange for? This one said, I need the orange. This one said, I need the orange. The father then asked, why do you need the orange? One said, I need the orange because I want to do something with it. So the father ended up dividing the orange into two. That, okay, since you are fighting over the orange, take it and go. They divided into two. One took part of the orange, removed the peels and throw the peels and had the fruit. The other one took part of his orange, throw the fruit, the peel, and ate the fruit. Now this was what happened. The one that had the peels took it to bake a cake and throw away the fruit. The one that had the fruit took the fruit and threw away the peels, never wanted to use it. Now if they had asked the question why do you need the orange, this one will say, I need the orange because I want to use the peels to bake cake. The other one will say, I need the orange because I want to use it, I want to suck the fruit. Now they would have ended with a full peel and a full orange, but because they did not ask the question why, they ended up with half. And this is a situation in Cameroon. Why must we go for dialogue? We must go for dialogue because the nation is at its knees. If we look at the economic of this war, how much is spent per day by the military, by different support mission, by also assistance, humanitarian aid, and above all, looking at the human capital that is wasting, I must tell us and ask the question, what is in the name? Is it the name that matters? That in the northwest and southwest, people cannot have access to education, full access? Is it the name that in the northwest and southwest region, people cannot have access to good hospitals because of gun? What is in the name? And we ask the question over and over and over and over again. In a nutshell, what do we do in times like this? What we do in times like this, the armed fighters, they should hear me and hear me clearly. Mind what you say during peace building. Because when you have engaged yourself in peace building, what spoils it is what you say outside, the arrogance in which you exhibit. So at this point in time, you should mind how your outing goes. You should mind what you use, the words you use, because words have a sharp edge of bringing people together and taking them apart. So my dear Cameroonians and people of goodwill, what is in that name? We are singing the anthem of Cameroon. I like going back to the anthem of Cameroon because if America as it is today, America pays more emphasis in the anthem. That's why you see they do invasion left and right, because in the anthem it is stated that the conquer we must if our cause is just, and this be our motto, in God we shall trust. The conquer we must if our cause is just, and this be our motto, in God we shall trust. In Cameroon, the welfare will win in joy and love and peace. We will be to your name ever true. The name ever true is that we will provide you education, security, we ensure accountability, we ensure social and economic justice. Are we living to the name ever true? Government of Cameroon and those who are fighting, are we living to the name ever true? It is on your table.
Okay, it is on your table. What to do? Yeah.
Mr. Kum?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, Mr. Kum, very, very quickly, because I mean, I have to say that I'm sure, like many people, one is astonished by this statement from the government on account of, I mean, in respect of the Canadian government statement of 72 hours ago. But so we are looking. One is looking forward eagerly to seeing or hearing how the government of Canada would react to this, because in a way. If the government of Canada says that the parties have signed up to this and to that, and that the parties include government of Cameroon, and the government of Cameroon says it is not, then the government of Cameroon is practically saying that the government of Canada is lying.
Yes, but
so,
doctor,
the government of Canada will react to that.
Yeah, but doctor, let's assume that we agree in principle to engage in something. And then a party puts out an information and is actually instructed by a party to pull it out, and you obey to that, to put out something that you edit what you have been instructed to do by a party. Don't you already put that in one of the parties? Yeah.
No, Mr. Kum, in that case, you indicate the precise point to which you are objecting. You understand? For example, if as I highlighted while reading the wording of the Canadian statement, with that use of, I don't want to go back to it because you remember what I said, but if the grievance of the Cameroon government is that, then the government will focus on that specific matter. The government will say, for example, that we take exception to the fact that you put it on the same level with groups that we don't, which are not a government. We take exception to the fact that you are calling this territory Ambazonia, that we don't recognize. Yeah, the government will be entitled to issue a statement, a communique, highlighting that and saying that it objects to this. That would be normal. But what you read to us is a blanket withdrawal from the process even before it begins, by saying that they haven't mandated anyone in the international community to handle the process. So it's very different, Mr. Kum. It's not just to do a particular matter like Ayabacho and others objected to the use of Northwest and Southwest, but this is a completely saying we did not mandate anybody and therefore we are not part of this. That's different and very serious in the light of the source of this communique or this statement of the Canadians.
Can we also say in this the fact that there are persons who are for it and others who are not also for this method of ending the crisis, like was the case when information actually circulated that talks had been opened with Ayuk Tabe in Yaoundé, and a day or two after a communique came to refute that?
Yeah, Mr. Kum, that's why I spoke earlier of evidence of dysfunctionality of the government in Yaoundé, because these things don't just come out of the blue. No, they don't. But it is not uncommon, because one has observed that in other situations. It is not uncommon for one operative of the system, of the Yaoundé system, to even receive instructions since they work on instructions and high instructions and very high instructions. It is not uncommon for one operative of the system to receive instructions in one direction, and another operative in the same system to receive instructions from the same source that don't go in the same sense as the first operative. This is happening all the time. So it would not be surprising, therefore, to learn, for example, that the Canadian process was with the active participation of people who purported to be representing the government of Cameroon, because otherwise the Canadian government will not come out openly saying that the government of Cameroon was part of this. So the one's reading is that there must have been people who attended the meetings in the past 4 months, took part in this process, purporting to be representing the government of Cameroon. And that now that the thing has come to the open, that same government of Cameroon is basically saying, without stating it openly, we did not mandate you. We did not send you there. So if it was a system where, which takes itself seriously, there would have to be an investigation, an inquiry. Who are those who went to Canada, Toronto, and Montreal, or wherever? Who are those who went there, engaged in this process with the Canadian government, with the separatist groups, to the point of saying that we reached an agreement committing us? Who sent you? Who gave you the authority to go there? Because someone must have played that role. The Canadians are not just inventing this. Someone must have done that. So who did it? And why is that person or those persons being, as it were, contested by the government of Cameroon today? It is so maddening. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay. Doctor, thank you very much for your time this evening on Prime Hour.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. And as usual, whenever you ask me to come, I wouldn't hesitate. I think it's important that we have these discussions of these opportunities for information, analysis, for the benefit of our people, because at the end of the day, it is the people who count. And sooner or later, the people will have their voice in this as well. So it's important that they get continuously informed as we go along. So once again, thank you for the opportunity. Jarvis, you have a good night. Thank you for allowing me to share this platform with you, and to the viewers of the flagship program of my media Prime Hour. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye. Doctor, thank you too, Tamai Jarvis. Quite dramatic out there.
Thank you, Mr. Kum. The people of Cameroon should not give up hope. This is common in the negotiation process.
Okay.
It's a process. It's not an event. In the days ahead, there's a green light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. We want to thank the producers of the program, Desmond and Eli, and also to all of you who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.